Madam Vice President, thank you so much for doing this and making the time.
Of course.
Just a little bit busy right now. We want to start on an issue that Americans across the country say is their number one concern, and that's the economy. A question that has been asked of you and everybody that's on the Democratic side is whether or not voters are better off now than they were 4 years ago. Are they better off now than they were 4 years ago?
So when we came into, well, first of all, let me just say, it is good to be with the National Association of Black Journalists, and I thank you for the work you do and that your members do every day. It is very important that we ensure that this organization and your members always have the resources and the platforms to deliver the voices that must be heard. So I thank you for hosting me today. 4 years ago, when we came in during the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. We came in during the worst public health epidemic in centuries. We came in after the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
And she needs to stop lying. Evidently you're forgetting about the attack on Pearl Harbor. I believe the attack on Pearl Harbor was worse than what happened on January 6th. So let's stop lying, Kamala, okay?
And a lot of it due in large part to the mismanagement by the former president as it relates to COVID and obviously January 6th. And we had then a lot of work to do to clean up a mess. As of today, we have created over 16 million new jobs, over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. We have the lowest Black unemployment rate in generations. We have invested in small businesses, and they're to the benefit of many people, but including Black small businesses, some of the highest rate of creation of new Black small businesses in years. We have done the work of capping the cost of prescription medication for our seniors for issues like insulin. And again, I'm speaking to the Black journalists who care about all people, but in particular, I'll talk about the impact on Black people, where we know Black folks are 60% more likely to be diagnosed with diabetes. And we have now finally capped the cost of insulin for our seniors at $35 a month, capped the cost of prescription medication for our seniors at $2,000 a year, because we, unlike the former president who promised to do it, we finally have allowed Medicare.
Stop throwing shots at Trump. This is getting old. They want to hear about you, not the president from 4 years ago.
Care to negotiate drug prices against the big pharmaceutical companies. And these are just some of the accomplishments. Is the price of groceries still too high? Yes. Do we have more work to do? Yes. And I will tell you, I do believe that I offer a new generation of leadership for our country that is about, in particular, turning the page on an era that sadly has shown us attempts by some to incite fear, to create division in our country, and to do the work that is about bringing some level of optimism and, dare I say, ambition about what I know is possible in our country. And so my plan for the economy includes what I imagine and believe and call an opportunity economy. What we can do to grow an opportunity economy where all people have access to the resources to compete, to apply their incredible work ethic, their ambition, their aspirations, and their dreams, and actually not just get by, but get ahead. And I can talk in more detail about it, but specifically, I'll mention a few things.
Yeah.
One of the big issues that affects people right now in terms of the economy and their economic well-being is we have a shortage of housing supply. It's too expensive. People can't afford to buy a home. You know, we grew up, our parents, where they had the ability to somehow believe the American dream was attainable. Not so much for younger working people. And I recognize that. So my approach is a new approach, which is to say, let's just take this and deal with it head on. And part of my approach is to say, I'm going to employ and engage the private sector, in particular home builders with tax credits, to give them the incentive to create new housing, 3 million by the end of my first term, and understanding that not everybody is, handed a silver spoon, but works hard and is trying to save up for a down payment. Part of my plan.
You're in office right now. Why aren't you implementing these things now? Some of them.
Save up for a down payment. Part of my plan under my opportunity economy is to give first-time home buyers a $25,000 down payment assistance so they can just get their foot in the door to be able to then engage in what will prove to be their opportunity to build intergenerational wealth. Here's my personal experience coming at that.
About how they stay in the home. People cannot afford housing, really, because the prices are so high up. What makes you think they're going to be able to maintain that home? Maintain the payments and so forth? If you're just handing them money. Like, people are already struggling now with the homes that they have. How are they going to continue to live in that home?
Intergenerational wealth. And here's my personal experience coming at that. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother was hardworking. She raised me.
Every single speech, every single interview, you gotta bring up the point that she was raised in a middle-class home, supposedly. No one cares. No one asks you about how you grew up. A lot of us are not growing up like you're growing up. With a scientist as a mother and a college professor as a father.
My mother was hardworking. She raised me and my sister Maya. She saved up, and it was only by the time I was a teenager.
I know that she doesn't mention her dad very much, unless it's probably regarding her racial identity or something.
As a teenager, that she could afford to actually buy her first home. And I know, and I identify with, I know where I come from.
Madam Vice President.
And I know, but I'm just going to finish. I know
where I come from. Don't nobody care where you come from. You didn't come from a black home, that's for sure. Because your mama Indian. She ain't black. So. And there's no need to be rude, okay? They're asking specific questions, and you're diverting from the answering it head on. Come on now. Just answer the question.
that so many people work so hard and should have the opportunity to just get their foot in the door. Again, so it's not just about getting by, but getting ahead. Please.
I'd like to ask you more about the opportunity economy. Housing is a part of it, as well as expanding the earned income tax credit, financial support, as you mentioned, for first-time buyers, and a $50,000 tax deduction for startups and small businesses. But I want to talk to you about the squeeze that millions of Americans are also dealing with that impacts their ability to work and make money, and that is child care and elder.
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead.
Black men, as you know, are a closely watched voting bloc. You've hosted black men at your residence. You have engaged black men and centered them in your economic opportunity tour. But polling shows that some black men, particularly young black men, are considering voting for Donald Trump, and they see him as better for the economy. What is your message to young black male voters who feel left out of this economy, and how can your economic policies materially change their lives?
So I appreciate the spirit of the question, but I'll tell you, I've often been asked this question in a way that I've had to respond by first saying that I think it's very important to not operate from the assumption that black men are in anybody's pocket.
Where is that coming from? Where is that coming from? Because no one was speaking about stereotypes. Everybody on the panel is supposed to be black, right? Including her. Why would you be bringing up old stereotypes that no one actually talked? Like, who is saying this other than you?
Black men are like any other voting group. Black men are like any other voting group. You got to earn their vote. So I'm working to earn the vote. Not assuming I'm going to have it because I am black, but
because I'm black. You black. No, you're Indian. The majority of you is Indian. You were raised with that Indian culture, an Indian mother. You were raised to be an Indian girl. You're an Indian girl. How about that? You're more like... she's trying to put that all over her face. I'm black. You know, when she's making that gesture, she's putting on herself, I'm black. The fact that you have to tell black people that you're black is the problem. Because we don't go by that one drop rule. No, that racist one drop rule, we don't live by that. What some ignorant folks do, but I definitely don't.
Because the policies and the perspectives I have understands what we must do to recognize the needs of all communities, and I intend to be a president for all people. Specifically as it relates to what we need to do, to your point around economic opportunity. Yes, I started way before I was at the top of the ticket, what I called an economic opportunity tour, focused on black men. Understanding that, for example, we have so many entrepreneurs in the community who do not have access to capital, but they've got great ideas, an incredible work ethic, the ambition, the aspiration, the dream, but don't have the relationships necessarily. So my work has included, as vice president, getting billions more dollars into community banks, including working with the big banks to do that, so that we can increase access to capital for our small businesses, for our startups. Part of my plan under my economic opportunity plan going forward is that right now, startup entrepreneurs, small businesses only get a tax deduction of $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. So I'm expanding that to $50,000. Understanding, again, that when people have the opportunity to have the resources to get started, they're going to put the good ideas, they're going to put the hard work into it. And part of what I also know is that our young black men, our black men, just like any group of people, anybody, are small businesses.
Why does she have to point that out, that black men are like... Let me rewind that a little bit.
Increase access to capital for our small businesses, for our startups. Part of my plan under my economic opportunity plan going forward is that right now, startup entrepreneurs, they're going to put the good ideas, they're going to put the hard work into it. And part of what I also know is that our young black men, our black men, just like any group of people, anybody,
black men are like black men of any other... What? Let's see if I can pop.
Our small businesses are really the resources to get started. They're going to put the good ideas, they're going to put the hard work into it. And part of what I also know is that our young black men, our black men, just like any group of people, anybody, our small
just like any group of people.
Are really the backbone
weird
of our economy overall. And when they do better economically, we all do better. Part of my work is about understanding what we need to do in dealing with, for example, the historic inequities that have faced the black community around home ownership, right? I don't have to go through the history with anybody here about what that has meant in terms of redlining, what that has meant in terms of biases and home appraisals, and what the impact it has had on stemming the opportunity to build intergenerational wealth because of those obstacles. So part of the work that I have done and will continue to do is identify, speak truth about those obstacles, and address them. Another example is medical debt. 1 in 4 black families or individuals is more likely to carry medical debt than others. So part of my perspective, and as vice president, part of the work that we have done is to say that we're going to eliminate medical debt from being on your credit score. Because until now, medical debt worked against your credit score, and people know their credit score like your weight, right? You know that number. And the difference between what that number is and what it needs to be is the difference between you being able to get a car loan, a small business loan, or even a leasing on an apartment. And so part of my approach is understanding the obstacles that traditionally and currently exist to allow anyone, including black men, be able to achieve economic wealth. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think it is sufficient to just...
I feel like she's speaking more universally than specifically to black men.
It is sufficient to just only talk about economic policy around reducing unemployment. It is an important marker, and I'm proud of the work that we've done thus far. But it should be a baseline there. Everybody's working. The point is, do people have an opportunity to build wealth? If that's what they choose to do, if that's what they want to do. And a lot of my perspective as we go forward is just that. I believe that there are a lot of opportunities that are available to the American people if we see people and understand what they want for themselves and their families, and then meet them where they are.
Madam Vice President, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the war in Gaza.
I'm going to skip that a little bit.
We need to get done is this hostage deal and this ceasefire deal. We need a ceasefire. We need the hostage deal.
I want to switch gears to racial justice, Madam Vice President. Last month, you eulogized Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Jackson Lee's signature bill,
There is a specific one I want to hear.
was
I
HR
can't remember
40, which would create...
Yo, you can't believe these shorts at Fat Legs are $10. Look at the shorts I used to wear to the gym. Now look at the Fat Legs.
skip.
That is an extension of what should not be lost in this moment, this concept of the public trust.
This moment.
To then understand what the public trust means. It means that you have been invested with trust that are grounded in tropes that are age old.
Okay, here
And
she
look, I
goes
said
talking
it not
about
very
Trump
far
again.
from
I
here
know.
the other day at the debate.
It's
This
not
is not
talking
new.
about.
This is not new in terms of these tropes.
Next.
Vice President, I'm switching gears again.
Okay.
Quick question. I want to talk to you about gun control. So you've said you support an assault weapons ban and universal background checks, and we actually learned during the debate that you are a gun owner. But in cities like Philadelphia, handguns are responsible for most homicides and violent crime. The most recent FBI data shows handguns were involved in 59% of murders in our country. How will you address the issue of the use of handguns? Because a push for an assault weapons ban only addresses a significant but small part of the problem.
So, first of all, yes, I am a gun owner, and Tim Walz is a gun owner, and we're not trying to take anybody's guns away from them. But we do need an assault weapons ban.
You know you're lying.
Assault weapons,
You know you're lying about not wanting to take anyone's gun away from them, because people that own assault weapons legally are obviously gonna get penalized, because if you ban what they have legally, then wouldn't you be taking their guns away? Because they're, technically we're not allowed to have stuff that are banned, right? Because I know she likes what the Australian program did, and they did a mandatory buyback. So people had their guns taken from them, and their guns were destroyed.
we do need an assault weapons ban. Assault weapons are designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly,
Yes,
and
an
have
assault
no
weapons
place,
ban,
and have
yes.
no place, I'm going to get to it,
Yes.
and have no place on the streets of a civil society. We need universal background checks, which, to your point about handguns, is about saying that it is just reasonable to want reasonable gun safety laws that say we should do background checks, that we ought to know. It's just reasonable. You might want to know before someone can buy a lethal weapon if they've been found by a court to be a danger to themselves or others. You might just want to know.
And respectfully, we do understand that.
Yeah.
But you're asking about...
I'm
you're
asking specifically about handguns, because many of those handguns aren't purchased in places.
Universal background checks apply to handguns.
Yes.
They do.
But in
And
many instances, those handguns aren't even bought lawfully. Yes.
Which is why I also have been very adamant for years. In fact, I myself protested at a gun show probably 10, 15 years ago about the gun show loophole and why we need to close that. Because what ends up happening...
No gun show loophole anymore? Because they're all required to, anyone that buys from them, they're required to have a background check.
Because what ends up happening is that gun shows at flea markets, gun dealers are not under existing law in the past.
Existing law of the past. You mean, if you're going to speak in the present, speak in the present. You're going to speak in the past, speak in the past. Don't confuse the two. You cannot combine the two. It just doesn't work. And stop scrambling your words so much. I mean, you're supposed to be an educated woman. Come on now.
Required to register their sales. And so you are exactly right that a lot of homicides, for example, a good number of them, I don't have the statistic in front of my mind, are committed with illegally purchased guns. And that's why we need to address each entry point in the issue, including universal background checks, closing the gun show loophole.
It doesn't make any sense. For people that get their guns illegally, they're not going to undergo a background check at all. How can they possibly undergo a background check when they purchase their gun illegally? And some people are getting their guns on the black market, and a lot of people are getting their guns from people who have already who have already brought their guns at the background check, and they're just buying it from that owner. So that's what they're getting their guns from, family members and stuff like that.
And what we need to do as a general matter to focus not only on reaction to crime, but prevention of crime. So you're raising a very important issue that has many facets, including what we need to do in terms of reasonable gun safety laws and what we need to do
There already
around...
are reasonable gun safety laws that exist today. In fact, any business that sells guns, they have to do a background check on the individual, even online businesses. So, come on now, right?
Around crime prevention, what we need to do around crime deterrence. But listen, I have personally prosecuted homicide.
There you go with the personal, emotional story,
I have held the hands of mothers who have come to me crying, who have said, I only want to talk to Kamala, because they knew when they sat down, I would treat them with the dignity and respect that they were entitled and due about the loss of their child, often their son.
I think she should have just stopped at this point and not have further said what she's about to say, because that, for me, I feel like that's confusion.
Seriously. And we must take it seriously. In every way, understanding it's not just about a soundbite. It's about a comprehensive approach that deals with the tragedy of, to your point, everyday gun violence in America. It's real. It has had a profound impact in terms of trauma that for the most part has gone undiagnosed and untreated. The trauma that exists in communities.
That exists in communities. It's this part.
Around the violence of losing their children, losing a brother, losing a father, an uncle. All of that must be addressed. And we have to have.
But how does that correlate? Like every time I watch this part, I'm just trying to figure out how does that correlate. So the violence around losing your uncle, your brother, or son, whatever, like the trauma around that, but that trauma doesn't necessarily create more gun violence necessarily. Like, I don't get it.
You have to have a holistic response to it.
Are there things we haven't thought about yet? Because every time we bring up this issue of gun violence, universal background checks comes up and a ban on assault weapons. Are there other solutions that you're also thinking about that will get at this issue?
Absolutely. For example, part of what we did as vice president and with the president, we were able to pass the first meaningful gun safety legislation in 30 years. And part of what that involved was millions and millions of dollars to put more mental health counselors in public schools, right? Because we know that there is an aspect of this that is about treating the trauma and dealing with it at its source before it ends up manifesting itself in a problem. There is the work that we need to do that is about putting resources into communities around violence prevention. I've been a big...
One of the things I noticed that they don't mention is, why is this like moving forward and back? It's weird. One of the things I've noticed that, okay, stop following my hand. That they haven't mentioned some of the real issues that happen every day. They only talk about like mass shootings and just the violence part. They don't talk about accidental shootings or anything. Like recently, a child, like a toddler, like I'm not sure how old the child was, maybe like 3, 5, I don't know, went into the mother's purse and shot themselves. So, like, gun safety should be taught, like basic gun safety, like how to store a gun and all this other stuff. But they don't get on that topic. And even so, there's a whole lot to the whole gun safety thing, that aspect that they aren't telling people. Just a basic education, and that touches on different subjects. Like I said already about gun storage and stuff like that. And one of the other topics would be the kind of ammunition being used, because people don't know about that part. Because even if you were handling a gun safely and a intruder comes in, people often realize that the certain ammunition is more dangerous than others because they penetrate more. Or some like if FMJs, full metal jackets, bullets, they're good for the range, but they're not good for like defense, because those bullets don't have
putting resources into community-based intervention that is not just requiring on the good people in the community to volunteer to do the intervention, but actually paying people to do it because it's a full-time job.
An unattended victim.
It's about understanding what we need to do to, again, understand that, to your point, we have to have a holistic response to this issue and prioritize it instead of reacting to the tragedy that sadly they are too predictable, let's all agree, enough of that. There are very few solutions that we haven't thought of. We need to put the resources into them.
Madam Vice
But that doesn't change my perspective on the importance of fighting for the safety of everybody in our country. And doing everything we can to, again, lift people up and not beat people down so they feel alone and are made to feel small and made to feel like they're somehow not a part of it or us.
Madam Vice President, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I've appreciated this. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't catch this with the first video because I didn't. But yeah, she just kind of like turned her body, turned her head, and kind of like waved, like, "Get me out of here! Like, get away!" Like, and people did not like that. And honestly, I feel that she was a bit rude. She was. Yes. I feel like that interview kind of showed her attitude towards black people in a way, especially like black men. It's like a what do you call that word? Having the brain fog. A frog. It's like some of the words that she speaks kind of shows her attitude towards the black community, I feel like, because she was very rude. I feel like she was very rude to the host. You know, and her constant crashing, dodging doesn't help her at all. It just like it just never fails. Like every interview or whatever, she seems to kind of do a little roundabout around the question, and people have to press her just to get her to answer the question that they've asked her, which is ridiculous. You know, I don't consider myself a well-educated person or anything, but it's just like, this is ridiculous. And she makes herself look dumb when she does certain things. And this isn't looking good for her at all, period. And some people just want to vote for her because she's a woman, she's black, or she's not Trump. And the fact that she's someone other than Trump, because they don't like Trump. But it's like, that should not be a reason why you vote for somebody. Like, you need to vote for the policies, and you need to really look into what they're offering. And with Kamala, we kind of already see what she offers, and it's what we got now. And it's not, groceries are high, everything is just, no. A lot of people are losing their jobs and stuff, and you know, and she goes back to blaming stuff on Trump. Like, how you gonna blame everything on Trump? He was president 4 years ago. If you got an issue with how stuff is right now, you got to look at yourself and the current president, period. And she hasn't really demonstrated herself being, you know, different from the current president at all. So, like, who wants 4 more years of this?